I wanted to mention that when I started doing it consistently, I'm meditating. So I'm sitting on my floor. I'm stretching my legs, trying to do what we used to call an Indian sitting position, but I don't know how to stretch my legs over my thighs. I don't know if I'm capable. I've been trying and it hurts like hell.
Mhm.
Maybe
Sure.
you have some advice for that you can give me. But what I was going to ask you is about the breathing. When we say focus on the breath, are what aspects could, so I'll tell you what I do, but I mean you can give me more details of what one can do maybe better or
Okay.
um so I mean I'm focusing on the nostrils, the air going in and out. I'm focusing on the depth of breath, um the pause in between the in and out of the breath, the lungs filling up, the warmth of the air or the coldness of the air. Those are the kind of things that I'm focusing on. What else could I be focusing on?
Nothing. It's not what you're focusing on. I would have to say it's, and this is important for everyone, it's how you're focusing on them, these things. So if you're looking to see if the breath in your lungs is warm or not, that's different from just seeing the breath or feeling or experiencing it as warm. So again, we're not leading the witness or trying to analyze it or break it down or micromanage it in any way, shape, or form. Just again, bare attention is what we're learning how to do. Just how do we see things in a very sort of fresh and almost, you could say, innocent kind of way. Again, we use this term beginner's mind, which comes out of the sort of Zen tradition. Suzuki Roshi was a great Zen master who came to America and wrote a wonderful book that I recommend to anybody called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And he kind of coined that phrase, but it's very apt. Beginner's mind, almost like you're doing it for the first time. And we do it without even thinking about it too much. We're just watching. So much harder to do than it sounds like, right? Just watching. So as you're describing, it sounds perfect. You can see, just watch the breath as it goes in and out from the point of your nostrils, if you like that, using that as a point of attention. The idea is just to let it happen. Let the breathing happen. No controlling it, no steering it, no, not even trying to analyze it. You're just seeing it. It's deceptively simple. So therefore it's kind of hard. But that's what we practice. It's like if you're looking at a flower, because you don't have to use your breath, you can use an object. But it's really hard to just see a flower without trying to, count the petals and, analyze to yourself the color. Oh, it should be brighter, or it's fading, or the flower's wilting, or, the pollen is, just seeing it, just being with it. It's really something that most of us don't have much experience in, just being present. That's really being present. And we just use the breath. It just happens that the breath is a wonderful object to use, or phenomena to use, because it's so intimate to us. It's something we carry with us. We don't have to go out and, do anything special. And as I've said in the past, breath is emotionally neutral. Doesn't have any charge, any emotional charge. It's not particularly good or bad. It's nothing we can approve or disapprove of. We're just breathing. And as I've also said in past videos, breath is now. It's not in the past and it's not in the future. You're only breathing now. But we just notice it. We just look. We just see it. And we're not seeing other things in our mind. We're not focusing our attention on the underlying stories that are out there. The thoughts that are trying to grab our attention and say, oh, think of me, like a spoiled kid, Look at me, look at me. It's but those thoughts are and that's how we discover how our mind works, that we have thoughts intruding. They're very intrusive, and thoughts are very demanding. They're very demanding. You have to think about me because I'm really important. We have to think about dinner tonight. We have to think about picking up the kids. We have to think about taking the dog for a walk. We have to think about, endless things, right? Well, when we're meditating, it's time out. We don't have to think about anything other than just being with our breath or the flower. And that's a reset. It's a reset from how the mind normally operates. So Gampopa, a great teacher, said, to really enter Dharma, we have to turn around our thinking. So normal thinking is the way the world is. Dharmic sort of thinking is not thinking. And again, it's not suppressing thinking. It's not trying to get rid of our thoughts. It's not doing battle, and I'm going to slay my thoughts. It's not at all like that. It's making peace with them. It's allowing them to be, as I said in previous video, allowing the thoughts to have their own dignity. Their own dignity. Let them be. Let them have their own life. What we start to understand in a deep way, experientially as a meditator, is that we are not our thoughts. We are something other than our thoughts. The journey is to discover what that is that we actually are, who we are, what we are, how we are. The greatest Western philosopher was Socrates. And interestingly, he lived very close to the time of the Buddha himself. He lived maybe 100 to 150 years after the Buddha, so just a couple generations. And Socrates said, two things are very profound, and they're both very Buddhist. He said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And what we're discovering is this sort of Buddhist path is examining who we are. It's getting an intimate understanding of really who we are. So he said, the unexamined life, if someone doesn't even bother to look, that's a waste of this life. And then he said, know thyself. The highest calling is to know thyself. And that's the crux of the matter. We examine to know who we are, what we are. It's not what we think, probably. It's not the things we identify with, being a male or a female, being from this culture or a certain society, all the things that we like, that we approve of, all the personality stuff. We're doing a deep dive. We're parting the waters, all the superficial stuff, all the identities that we have, that we've assumed, that we've taken on, that we believe in, that we've bought into. If that stuff falls away, as it will when we die, all that stuff it falls away at the moment of death. And you're left with the naked experience, the unclothed, uncovered, unfettered, unconcealed, natural state of our mind itself. We can almost say meditation is preparation for that. So this is what this journey is. It's true self-discovery, you could say. Also, back in the 1960s, sort of in the hippie days, there was a philosophical or a psychological sort of movement that came out of California and the psychedelic experience and all this stuff. And it had a particular name. It was called the Human Potential Movement. So some of you baby boomers that are watching this may recall that phrase, the Human Potential Movement. Buddhism is the ultimate human potential movement. It's, if we find out who and what we really are, we are actually then experiencing our true, fullest human potential, which is beyond culture, beyond gender, beyond society. It's something universal. That's the nature of our mind. Our mind is free. Our mind is liberated. Our mind is open. Our mind is completely crystal clear. There's no way to really experience that without, I mean, meditation is how we experience that. Let's just say it like that. Meditation is how we experience that. At least to get a glimpse, at least to realize it's possible, or at some point kind of get a aha, a breakthrough that shows it's really possible and it's really there. Then the path, as we continue, as years and decades go by of practice, we learn to stabilize it, extend it, sort of expand or broaden it in a sense, carry it off the mat into our moment-to-moment daily life, even when we're interacting with our world, like that.
Well, let me ask you a question regarding like the beginner's mind. And occasionally while you're in, I know it's only a short period, let's say 10 minutes, if you're doing a 10-minute meditation, it is short, but sometimes either a profound thought or something that you just remembered that you forgot about, or something, it comes to mind, a good idea.
Yes.
What's your prescription for that? Would you keep a notepad near you, just like, or just ignore it altogether, or just examine it and just let it be?
Those thoughts are irresistible. And I'd be a liar if I didn't say that actually, to be honest, I've done that with a notepad early on and I wrote down things that I thought were amazingly profound or important, or even snips of poetry or whatever that would come through my mind. But don't do what I did. That's not recommended. The most beautiful, profound, interesting thoughts, those are demons. Sometimes it's said in sort of the Tibetan tradition. I don't literally mean demons, of course. We're Westerners. We don't believe in demons. But the idea is that they're sort of seductive distractions. And because the very nature of them is so attractive and so interesting, you just notice them. It becomes part of regular meditation like everything else. They're just thoughts. And actually, ultimately, as you will discover as time goes on in your meditation, as your practice matures, that all thoughts are of the same nature, which is there's nothing there. They're empty. Relatively, they have this huge grip on us. And yes, they're so exciting and important. And that's a breakthrough. And wow, I never thought that before. I never realized that before. But they are distractions, actually. They're more powerful distractions because they're so interesting to us. So hard to resist those sometimes, but if you can navigate through,
especially if it's something that you forgot about and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing that I have to do, and then you want to write it down or whatever because you don't want to forget again.
Well, maybe you need to write it down once in a while, but don't make a habit. Don't make a habit of it. I don't want to endorse that kind of thing.
Before we go, I have one more thought or idea or something that I wanted to ask you. From the location perception, most times when I'm focusing on my breathing, the perception of my location is behind my eyes. But sometimes, occasionally, when I'm focusing on the breath, it'll be at the level of the nostril or at the throat or in the lungs, like where I am in the subjective location. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but do you know what I'm saying here? Is that like a common occurrence, or is that something that is
Tal and anybody watching? These are all normal things that happen to beginning meditators. They're all just fleeting experiences and states of mind and random sort of questions, and we're checking in and all this stuff. none of it matters. None of it is important. So all of it is a distraction. None of it matters. Now, it's hard. That's not the answer probably anybody wants to hear, but it's the true, honest answer. Just come back when you realize that your attention is on where am I, where's my body, or am I in my head, or wherever I am. Just come back to the breath. Again, the bare bones, mindful attention on the, again, simplicity. That's the key, right? We want to keep coming back to absolute simplicity, 0 point, nothing happening, just awareness. But if those are thoughts, and those are sequences of thoughts. Those are unfolding storylines and narratives about where am I? And it'll become a recurring habit. And every time you sit down to meditate, you're going to revisit that thing of, now, where am I in space? And where am I? Am I in my head, behind my eyes, or am I, all that kind of stuff? And if you want to think about that, think about it when you're not meditating. But when you're, quote, meditating, try to let that stuff go. Just label it. Oh, that's another thought. I'm thinking, it's a thought about where am I? Later on, so here's a good point. Later on, not now, not beginning shamatha meditation. Later on, when you're doing, we call insight meditation, we actually will look at sort of who am I, and maybe where am I, and where are my thoughts, and where did they come from, and where did they go, and do they have a shape, and all that stuff will come. There's a time and a place for that. But seriously, it's not now. Develop peace and stableness of mind, clarity and presence. That is the most important provision for your future journey. If you don't stabilize and develop that ability to stay one-pointed and present and non-distracted, you'll never make sort of further significant progress. Seriously. So our impatience to get to more interesting analyzing of who am I and that kind of stuff, again, that sort of impatience or whatever, it's not going to serve you well, and it's a distraction. So this is why this is taught in a certain traditional way. There is a foundation. There is a sort of a logical kind of sequence that makes sense. At least it will make sense later, and you'll appreciate it.
One last, I think I said this last one, but one last thing I wanted to ask you. The pillow I'm using isn't all that great. Do you have a recommendation of a specific type of pillow that? Because I never thought about using. I usually sit in a seat, but now I'm like, let me try to do it the traditional way, or how you normally see people who meditate.
Tal, I'm going to say something a little bit funny. Everybody's got a different butt.
Right.
So everybody needs a different pillow. And whatever is right for your butt and your back is what's right for you. So you just got to play around with the height and the firmness, and how it kind of angles your pelvis and your spine and your legs so that your knees are sort of level on the ground and flat and comfortable and relaxed. So no, I'm not going to endorse some brand of pillow or
yeah,
like
I wouldn't. I don't even know what to look for. It's like
Feely Posturepedic. I mean, just play around with whatever you have in your house, and blankets. It doesn't have to be a pillow per se. You just fold up a blanket like a yoga blanket in different ways. Play around with it. Some people like a really high seat, and some people like a much lower seat, and it's really just personal preference, and what again helps your spine to stay straight and stable.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Appreciate it.